Then we will turn the balance of the seminar over to Dr. Randy Davies, our very own Randy Davies, who I've known since grad school. We were in this program together at the same time. So,
Wow.
well, it's his talented students that he will be introducing. So thank you for welcoming our seminar today.
Yes, it's nothing like having a captive audience. You must come to this. Otherwise, you don't get it. We appreciate all being here. So what we're going to do today, I'm going to just kind of discuss and describe our research agenda that is mostly in AI. And then most of this presentation is going to be done by the students who are working on different projects. So each of them are in different kind of phases of the project. So some are just beginning, some are a little bit further along, and some are already collected data and are finding out wonderful new things. And so let me just explain a little bit about my agenda. So my research agenda is integrating technology into the teaching and learning process. And I teach assessment and evaluation. And so in the program, instructional design has kind of two parts in general. There's the design part and there's the development part, right? And so it's wonderful to be able to go out and to design a whole bunch of cool things, but it's another thing to actually develop it and make it work and implement it. And some of the things that we try to do are really simple, and other things are much more complicated and cost a lot of money. This is one of those things. The other aspects of the program in terms of the instructional design process or the teaching and learning process is the assessment part. Once you create these wonderful instructional designs, you need to then assess whether or not they're producing the learning outcomes that you're hoping for, right? Which is slightly different than the evaluation, which is part of the making sure that it's working and kind of working out all the bugs that we're doing. The other part of it is the research, which is the academic part, which is, how can we share all of these wonderful things that we're doing with everyone else? Okay, so where we're going with this. A few years ago, well, probably 2 years ago, I had a student come to me and said, let's look at this AI thing. I want to do that for my dissertation. And I said, no. And I said, no, because I'd studied a lot of the AI stuff, specifically in writing. It just wasn't ready. It did the basic kind of grammar check, kind of things. And it was very mechanical, machine learning kinds of things. I said, it just doesn't have what it needs to do this. And he said, well, let's look at it anyhow. And I said, okay. So we started looking at the ChatGPT stuff that was coming out. And then I realized it is now ready to do the things that it couldn't do. So anytime we're looking at technology, and if you look back, there's a lot of times when we're looking at certain specific technologies and we think this has potential, but there's some problems. And some of the problems we still have today, like it's not widely available to all of our students. And this is one of the problems Chris is going to explain. It doesn't work quite right. Like we had television, but like one of my very first evaluations that I did required that we create a set of 26 CDs for every student so that they could do the streaming videos. Well, now you don't need that because you have streaming videos. It's ubiquitous. You can just go online. The fact that you have the internet, the fact that each of you are sitting there with a laptop in front of you is just one of the problems that we had 15 years ago that we don't have now, at least in North America, in affluent kind of educational situations. Anyhow, back to this problem. He said, let's use this. Well, what do we have? We have AI. What can we use it with? Because all of our instructional design starts with a needs assessment or a gap analysis, right? We've got a problem that we need to solve. What's the problem that we wanted to solve? Well, we came up with several things, but when we went to talk to teachers, the thing that they had a biggest problem with was grading essays. I can talk to, well, how many of you are ever a teacher? And did you love grading essays? It was the thing that was most, problematic for you. One of the slogans that we have is take back your nights and weekends, because you're just taking all weekend to do this. And so in order to do his dissertation, we wanted to do a application of AI grading essays. And so we had to develop a product that actually did it. And that took a lot of time and effort and money. And so we did this, and we got the program that we have for that. I'm going to share. I'm going to go back to Zoom. Switch to out of Zoom. There it is. So this is the program. It took about a year and a half to develop it to the point that it could do the data collection and the research that we needed to do for his dissertation. He's now graduated, and so there is hope for all of you able to do this. But this is a program that's gone through many iterations, and basically what it is a tool to grade essays. So we create classes, and in that class, we will create an assignment, and in that assignment, then we will have a rubric for grading the assignments. And I'm going to go over this very quickly because I don't want to spend any time on this because we're going to run out of time anyhow with all of the projects. So then you get to an assignment, and you can pull it from Canvas, or you can just pull it from your drive, and then it will grade the essay. You'll see the essay here. You'll look at the criteria. You can make comments and do that. So this is all wonderful. We have this tool that grades essays, and it works. It works well. It's better than humans. Humans have a lot of biases when they're grading. They take time. They're inconsistent. A few of the most common ones are leniency bias. Did you know your teacher is more lenient than the AI is when you're grading? There's inconsistencies. Teachers are not looking at the same criteria. There's fatigue grading, where teachers give all the same grade, even though the assignments are really all very different, but they give them all the same grade, usually like about an 85, because that's where the students won't complain too much about their grade, but they're not looking very closely at the fact that that was a really good essay or that was a really bad essay. I'm okay with an 85. There's a lot of different problems with that. The AI and the essay grading is very consistent. It gives good feedback. It does it in a timely manner, and it solves a lot of problems. We had the presentation last week with Pathways. Pathways is using the RightGrader program, and they used to have a team of about 25 graders grading their assignments, and they got about 1,000 students every block. They have 6 blocks a year. They have 18 assignments. Well, they had 14. But once they started using RightGrader, they realized that they didn't have to take all week to grade their assignments. They could now do it in a day. And because they could do it in a day, and they have 2 assignments every week for all of their students, they now added a draft assignment to each of them. So now they could have the students submit the draft, get feedback on the draft, and then submit the final. They could still do their grading. Well, they don't have all those graders anymore because RightGrader does all the initial grading for them as a TA, and then they can just look through it and get it done. And it takes them a day or two to be able to go through all of that. So they've now improved their pedagogy. Okay, that's the PR for the program. What I really want to talk to you about is the extension of this. So once you've got this grading and you say to your students, oh, this is great, except you are struggling with transitions, or you're struggling with clarity, or you're struggling with something like that. So then what we do is to say, well, the teacher now has more time to spend meeting with all of their students to go over all of those things, right? No, they still don't have time to go with 60 students or 150 students to sit with each of them and do personalizing their instruction. Well, that's where this next part of it, and this is what Christine and Aaron are kind of working on. So we are working on a student portal. So the student portal is attached to RightGrader in 2 ways. And Chris and Aaron are going to do the writing coach part, and I'm just going to explain quickly the assignments. So when you're going into RightGrader, if I go into a class, a writing class, then I can publish that class. And if I publish that class, then I get a code. I can send it to the students who put in the code, and then any of the assignments that I put in there with the rubric, they can then select it and then go on it. So for instance, a lot of the ELL students struggle with past tense. So they can create an assignment that says, all right, write a paragraph in past tense. What did you eat for breakfast last week? You know, where did you go to dinner? So then they're going to write something in past tense, and then the feedback when they submit it gives line by line feedback on, okay, you did these ones well, you didn't do these ones well. You know, here's how you can work on that. So this is an extension of here's your assessment of your writing to here's how you can improve it, right? And so a lot of our users were basically looking at the idea of we need a way to help students, right? So one of our teachers was saying for transitions, I need to be able to go in class, explain it, and then say, all right, everybody try this, right? Now there's a pedagogy that is involved with teaching and learning that is, let me explain, I'll show you how to do it. Now we'll work together and practice some of these things, and now I'll let you do it on your own, right? And this process is quite often used, but we're trying to implement that into with an AI infused part. Now, remember, when you're using AI, we don't want to just say to the AI, hey, here's the problem, you just do everything. What we want to do is design the experience for the students so that there's not very much of the AI, only using the AI when it needs to be used. Because, well, that's one of the principles that we have to kind of we are developing is that we don't want the AI to do everything for two reasons. One, it often gets it wrong and it doesn't know the pedagogy, but two, it costs money, real money. Every time you call an AI to do something with an API, it's only, you know, a few cents or a few pennies or even a fraction of a penny every time you're doing these interactions, but it does cost money. So we're balancing the what can I program in and how do I structure this and organize it to what do I get the AI to do? So one of the parts that the AI does is I can give as much feedback to students as I want. And it's timely and it's accurate. And then the student gets the help they need, the just-in-time help that they need to do each of their things. So now the second part is the writing coaches. So once we've identified that they have a problem, like some of the students might say, okay, what's a transition? You know, what is a conjunction? What is what do you mean when you're being clear and concise? And so this is where I'm going to turn it over to and Aaron. They're working on these coaches, and the coach is basically going to do this process. It's going to explain, it's going to give examples, it's going to give guided practice, and then it's going to test. And each one of these has to be developed, and we're chunking it down. We're not just saying, teach me how to write. We're saying, teach me how to write a specific skill. Okay. And then I'm going to just turn it over to you. I'm going to stop sharing.
Quick anecdote as we're setting up here is that I was actually talking with a group of students and mentioning they were kind of curious, what are you working on? And I mentioned it and I said right grader. And they were like, oh, these were high school students. Oh, right grader. Because they had this teacher who was majorly lenient in grading their essays in this class at a school that will remain anonymous for maintain innocence. And when the teacher adopted right grader, they noticed that next assignment and they were all just shook, as they would say, because now they needed to start putting in the effort and their work was going to be graded. So anyway, and Christine Branson, first year MS student, working with Dr. Davies. It's not working this There we go. Okay. Okay, so Dr. Davies has gone over Right Grader, our AI-powered grader tool, and talked a lot about how feedback is crucial. And we know this in a lot of our courses, that feedback in real time is the best. And so that's what we're trying to get at with the writing tool, the coaching tool. So it can be utilized at any point by a student doing assignments in Right Grader, or when they get feedback, flagging those skills that they need to improve, as Dr. Davies mentioned. So let's consider the following skills that a student might need to be coached on. We start by creating a customized GPT for each individual skill. We've listed out a lot of skills that could be worked on in this context. And some of you are familiar with GPTs and customizing GPTs, but I'm just going to give a brief overview for those who have not done that or are not familiar with it. So when you use ChatGPT, you can create custom GPTs or choose from a growing library of them that are task specific, found in the Explore tab. And this is just a little section, for writing, for example, for trying to develop all these customized GPTs that you can use for task specific purposes. These are very helpful when you want a higher order or a complicated task from an LLM. Since the model is working probabilistically with trillions of data, this kind of narrows it down and specializes the tool. You can customize your own either in projects or by clicking create up in the corner. So those are two different ways. They're slightly different, and ask the AI if you're interested what the differences are. It gives a great explanation. But we start by creating a custom GPT, like I mentioned, for each of those writing skills. So here's an example of the instructions window where I would enter the prompt once I've created a new GPT. You can see up and to the right, the 3 red squares where I've uploaded 3 documents with clear and concise explanations of the targeted skill. And I often use our open education textbooks, online textbooks to further train and fine tune the model. You can also change the temperature to make the model more deterministic in its answers, which is great for little pieces of, I want to understand this skill or that skill. But there are other concerns with that. Some of them are cost, as Dr. Davies mentioned. And so we'll just keep the temperature steady for the bots that we use. That friendly little window with round edges looks simple enough, right? But AI prompting is kind of like solving a puzzle if you don't have a lot of experience with it yet. A big chunk of my research time is spent learning how to prompt better. And the quality of the prompting results in the quality of the GPT and how well it can perform the task reliably and consistently. This is an iterative process where I try it out and then I tweak and fine tune based on what is and what is not working. AI is also a great prompting teacher. If I ask it, it does a really good job of teaching me how to improve my own prompts. I also use my assessment knowledge from Dr. Davies' class to choose response types and testing protocols. And what we did once we had a lot of these GPTs developed is that we used these as sort of a proof of concept. And now what we're doing is integrating these refined prompts and understanding how the machine will respond to giving these targeted explanations into the right grader. So the pedagogy that we're using, as Dr. Davies mentioned, is the gradual release of responsibility model, which is show me, work with me, let me do it. Or in other words, I do, you do, we do. So then after we've created these custom GPTs, the next step is using the markup language. We integrate what we have for each skill into RightGrader, which is set up to use GPT-4 mini model. And I do not have coding experience. This was really intimidating to me when I started, but for those of you who work with Dr. Davies, he has this knack for saying, you can do it, it's no big deal. Just just start, give it a try. And so I did give it a try. And I created something and it was great. So for non-coders, this is something that's accessible. I think that's the beauty of AI, is that things like this are becoming more and more accessible to a broader range of people. But so again, we try it out, we make changes, we check the student view and we beta test it. And it's an exciting project to work on because we're simultaneously getting it working and thinking of how to mold it as a tool using good theory and good pedagogy. And we're thinking about what are those next extensions that we can make. So for example, we're discussing the screen inferiority effect, where learners tend to comprehend and retain less information with regards to how AI responds and interacts when there's a screen scrolling setup, which is the kind of interaction you have with an AI when you're prompting the AI. So the reason that this is not great is because it adds to cognitive overload. There's a lack of mental mapping when you're doing the scrolling. And there's a tendency to skim and not deep learn and deep think. So we're looking at ways in the future for the AI and the website to interact in a format that's less scrolling and more conducive to learning. So here's what a student sees from the student portal when they begin a new skill. After we create the writing coach for a skill, we come into this portal to test the AI for consistency and reliability, as I mentioned, in its outputs. The challenge at this point is getting the AI sufficiently fine-tuned to produce reliable results. As I was testing those and training those individual GPTs, for example, the context window is not huge for these machines. So especially if you're asking it to do a very complex task and you're uploading a lot of material, it tends to forget some of the instructions you gave it. And you have to say, remember, as you're training it, remember that instruction. And so we'll get to that a little bit later on, but that's just a little introduction to that. So anyway, we make sure that we're reaching the same level of reliability at this point. And as I mentioned, I'm researching and learning a lot about the nuts and bolts of machine learning, like how large language models work and prompting and training. How exactly does that work? And as a research team, we're continuing to test and adapt and create and evaluate and iterate as we learn and as we use these tools. So AI is an awesome, this is the list, yeah. So AI is an awesome teacher about how to utilize AI better, as I mentioned. So I wanted to give you a little peek into the process of what it was like. So here's a query, I'll just put it really quick, about how I had query I had for chat. So I was having this problem with it forgetting instructions and forgetting parts of what I was training it to do. So I said, I want to better understand how AI works. Explain to me why, when I create a custom GPT with uploaded documents and detailed instructions, you sometimes forget to incorporate some of the instructions when you do the task. So blamey. So it gave me some great feedback. Why a custom GPT? I use the word forget, so it kind of touches on how a machine learns and thinks, and how it's different than a human forgetting. And then I get these really important points to think about. It's competing with the user's prompt. The model doesn't store instructions like a checklist. That's not how it works. Custom GPT instructions can be too vague or too dense. So maybe I didn't do a good job prompting and how I formatted the words. Retrieval of uploaded files isn't automatic. Models optimize for helpfulness, not rule enforcement. And then last, this is, I think, it's funny that, so again, it's not perfect. This, I think, should be number one. The context window limitations was really what I was coming up against. So I can then ask the chat to teach me more about any of these concepts that I don't fully understand and would like to know more about. So that's a little window into what I've been doing.
All right. All right. So, thank you, Christina. I just want to add that AI is awesome. It really is. We have advanced so much in this technology in the past just 5 years that is just amazing and intimidating at the same time. So I'm just gonna talk about really quick how we've been using in a kind of like live environment, how that we've been using the GPTs and how we arrange that model to write grader. So this is one of the GPTs that I created. Me and Christina, we've been creating different GPTs as kind of like a little markup of what are we gonna end up putting in Write Grader. So this is kind of like the idea that we wanted to have in Write Grader as well. So this GPT, as it says, helps us learn, in this case, the English verb tense trainer, helps us learn, practice, and understand how to conjugate English verbs in the past, present, and future tenses. It is designed for non-native English speakers who want to improve their grammar, fluency, and confidence while using verbs in different times and contexts. In my case, I was thinking about how people that are learning English can practice better using ChatGPT as kind of like their main source of practice, not only of information, but of practice. So I created these 3 different buttons. But first off, if somebody is really like okay with the description that is here on the GPT, they can put explain, for example. And the GPT is gonna explain in detail what is this GPT for, and how are they gonna use it in the future. So it's pretty much summarizing the same content that they put in the book. And you can put, for example, I want to practice past tense, for example. So automatically what ChatGPT is gonna do is gonna give you different examples of how can you learn how to properly use the past tense, the simple past tense in an English context. So having that like mentality or having that idea of pretty much using ChatGPT as a trainer, we wanted to put that in Right Grader as well. So if we go here, this is the screen that Christina talked about when we are developing GPT for the Right Grader page. So in here, we kind of use the same situation that we want to put buttons. For example, what we have a button that is explained. Then we have another button that it's agent. Sorry, let's begin. There's another button. It's start practice. Then I'm gonna show you in a minute how is the student gonna see it. But this is all the code and the prompting that we use to train basically the GPT in order for them to develop all the different examples, all different tests that we needed for better practice. In this case, the transitions that Dr. Davies talked about at the beginning. So if I was to be a student, for example, and I want to use Right Grader to pretty much practice my transitions, I'm going to go to the students portal. And in the students portal, there's going to be the writing coach. I'm going to go to writing to transitions, and automatically we're going to have the information of what the GPT is going to be used for. And I can start by saying, explain to me what a transition is for.
One thing I should point out is that I use light mode, he's using dark mode.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that the light mode is the righteous mode. When I design these things and the colors that you choose and everything looks good in light mode, but then, oh, dark mode doesn't work as good. No, you gotta think of those things too. But anyhow, sorry, Aaron, go
Yeah,
ahead.
no, that's good. I'll try to change it afterwards.
Don't worry.
If we go to examples, for example, I'm already in transitions. I want to practice different examples of how I can use a transition coach. So he's gonna say here, the experiment, here are some examples of how transitions can be used. The experiment demonstrated promising results in control environments. However, the findings might not be applied to real situations. So here, it gives us the feedback that however is an excellent choice here. It shows contrast between the successes controlled setting and the uncertainty in real world application. It is appropriate and clearly signals a shift in the idea. So it doesn't only give you an example of what transitions you can use, but also gives you the feedback of why that transition works. If you click more examples, it's gonna give you another new example with another kind of transition word. In this case, for example, as a result. So the student here can have all the training that they want, all the different, in this case, transition words that they can practice infinitely, if they want to keep practicing this. Then you can have a guided practice of pretty much you can do it yourself. First, the examples is I'm gonna teach you what are some transitions. Then guided practices, I'm gonna guide you through the practice. That's the word, the name of it. So you can pretty much put it in action and know how it works. So we're just gonna start practice here. It says that I'll give you 2 sentences and you tell me which transitions would be the best. So in this case, we have sentence number 1 says the study revealed significant findings about student behavior. And sentence 2, more research is required to explore classroom applications. Consider the type of transitions needed. So let's say that you all are students here. Which one it's gonna be kind of like the correct answer here? Sentence 1 or sentence 2?
Well, it's not sentence one, it's the word that goes between them.
Sorry,
What word?
what's the word?
What word would connect these two?
However? Hey, it was the correct answer. It says,
This
you've
is an
suggested,
interesting thing because however would have been a good word, right?
Yeah.
And then the AI is kind of gets it wrong sometimes. It messes up a little. However, is a good word. It thought a better word. And this is like humans sometimes, you know, wordsmithing your dissertation. I want to use this word and your dissertation chair says, no, use this word. Okay, I'll do that.
so it says here that, however, I mean, although it indicates contrast, it does not quite fit here since both sentences are related and build on different findings of the study. However, implies a contradiction, whereas we are looking for a transition that highlights the need of further exploration based on the findings revealed. So here's the question, then what other transitions would have chosen in this case? And it gives here, the better option for it would be to consider using transitions like therefore or as a result. So it doesn't only give you the feedback, but it gives you kind of like the prompt of an answer that you could use in the future for this kind of sentences. We can do probably another if we have time, probably. Okay. Sentence one says many students find it difficult to manage their time effectively.
Another minute.
Awesome. This often leads to poor academic performance. Consider what type of transitions could be used in this situation. What transitions do you guys think that we could use in this situation?
As a result.
As a result?
Therefore.
Let's go with as a result.
I liked it that last time. Yeah.
There you go.
Might change its mind.
As a result is a great choice. It appropriately shows the case use and effect relationship between students struggling with blah, 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 blah. Okay, so this is kind of like a situation where you give the right answer. Gives you the feedback instantly, and it doesn't only give you the feedback, it says that it was a great choice. Okay, so that's the guided practice. And finally, we got the test me button. Test me button is, you go ahead, I'm gonna just give you the right or wrong answer at the end of it. So let's just make a little scheme of it. So in this case, we're gonna have 1 to 5 correct answer. If we could do 1 to 2, we're gonna have 1 star. 3 to 4, we're gonna have 2 stars, and 5 correct answers, we're gonna have all 3 stars in the exercise. Okay, we're just gonna do one by the end of the time. It says question number 1. What transitions would work to help connect these two sentences logically? So sentence number 1 says, the research showed that early intervention can significantly improve outcomes for students. Sentence 2 says, there are many challenges educators face in implementing these programs effectively. What transitions would you suggest? Who wants to hop in?
The answer is always however.
Yeah. What transitions do you guys think is the best fit in this one?
In this case, probably however.
However,
I was
you're
thinking,
gonna go that road again? Let's see. However. Nope. So here the better answer would have been furthermore or in addition. Then you got the why.
I always thought, however, was the correct answer to everything, but then when I started doing this, like I realized gives you a reason for it, you know, and however is implying this contradiction where these others are not, that there's the same. Go ahead.
It feels like the two sentences alone are decontextualized enough. But within a paragraph, however, would be justified based on the full context. I would worry a little bit here that only paired sentence might cause people to erode their trust in the feedback they're getting in grading.
And you're rightfully so. There's other times when one, it can't count to it, because it'll say, oh,
Numbers are difficult.
you got 4 out of 5 right. No, I only got 3 out of 5. What are you talking about? But you know, things like that. And there is this intelligent people disagree, right? So you ask 2 individuals that are writing people, and one will say one thing and one will say another. And there is that, you've hit on another really important thing. we expect programs and AI to be perfect. We don't expect humans to be perfect. And so if there is even an implied or perceived error, even if the AI is right and you're wrong, we lose trust in it. And it can, well, and then there are the times when it's just wrong. It gives you wrong information.
Yeah, and we have to remember that all the GPTs, all the AIs, they are machine-based learning sites. So we have to train them. They're not gonna be perfect 100% of the times. They're gonna be perfect probably 90% of the times. But the 10% of the times are gonna be wrong. And that's kind of like the beauty of it, because we have to train the machine and we gotta tell them, but this could also be an answer. Have you tried that? Instead of just giving or receiving the answer, you can go ahead and counterattack, just saying, this could also be an answer. What do you think of it? That's just another thought process for the application. But yeah, that's how far we've been going with Right Grader, specifically in the student portal with the writing coaches. And I'm gonna turn into.
All right.
Stop sharing your screen here.
So. It's kind of different now, something different. So this was a project that we conceived, designed, thought about, and then you had to develop this thing and make it work. So we had to have a developer code a lot of the things to make it actually accessible, scalable, things like that. Now we're going to move to a different project, which is not completely different, but quite different.
Chris, is that clicker doesn't work?
Oh, and then it's a different one.
Go ahead and click the next one. It doesn't work. Let's use
Oh,
this.
okay. Yeah, that's my name.
Sorry.
So there's a lot of AI stuff in terms of text-based learning, but I was really interested in vision and voice-based learning, particularly for math. So this is a little clip of me working on a physics problem that I didn't know how to do, but I just had the AI tutor me through it. And in this part of the math, I was supposed to write a 4, but I accidentally thought that I was supposed to write a 3 from the math, and it corrects me. It was a genuine mistake on my part.
Equals 2 V1 plus V.
This is Google Gemini.
Is that right so far?
You're on the right track. Just a small correction. When you divide 4 rho V2G by rho G, you should have 4 V2 left, not 3 volts 2. So the equation should be V1 plus 4 V2 equals 2,
Oh, you're so
V1
right.
plus V2.
I literally made that mistake.
So, and I've done this numerous times for different domains, different fields. And so I was really interested in studying this.
Cool.
And particularly,
2 V1 plus V. Is that right so far?
so I noticed some weaknesses. One, Gemini rushes to the answer. 2, it doesn't necessarily ask good questions like a tutor, even though you prompt it to. And 3, it hallucinates significantly more via vision than it does via text. You can ask the same math problem on the text version, and it'll get it significantly more correct. So I wanted to, study this. And some of the theoretical foundations of this is Bloom's taxonomy, or sorry, Bloom's 2 sigma problem, which for those who don't know, it's basically comparing the grades of students, where one teacher taught basically 30 students, and their grades varied between F, D, C, most of them got C's, some B's, few A's, comparing that normal curve to another group of students who basically got tutored one-on-one, and all of their scores basically were B's and A's. And so from this study, Bloom said this in his paper reflecting on this. He said, if this research kind of yields any actual real world effect, that a solution that can be taught to faculty in a brief period of time, and that's little to no cost, then it would be an educational contribution of the greatest magnitude. And that's what we're in right now, I feel, with AI. And so what about a human tutor is really good for math tutoring? And my kind of hypothesis is that it's this human interaction of the physical senses. We can both see what's on the paper. We can both hear what we're talking about and hear our thought process as we vocalize it using our voice. And which is a lot more frictionless and seamless than having to type it in. Well, how do I want to articulate my thought to this ChatGPT for math? And then like, how do I type in this math notation? And so it's a lot more seamless. We're seeing it in real time. We're hearing each other speak in real time. And if necessary, the tutor can just kind of point or circle here or write for you here and whatnot. So current technology is not the human level interaction, but rather a low level interaction. The students can, there's not that feedback loop of students asking questions, speaking their mind, asking targeted, the tutor AI these technology are not asking targeted questions, although they can identify misunderstandings and give you prepackaged feedback. But I've seen students receive the prepackaged feedback, X out of it, and ask a neighbor. So when they get it, so it's not very effective. So there's kind of a spectrum here of low interaction to human level interaction, where we've been kind of progressing along this line in order to reach human level tutors with AI that are, and then potentially surpass it. And so that's
Is that to scale?
no, it's not. We're almost there, guys. At least that's how I feel sometimes. And so I kind of created this visual to kind of see what are the different capabilities, not only in terms of the physical senses, but also in terms of tracking student learning. And like with Right Grader is able to track grades and grade based off of rubrics and present that data to instructors. So you know, in the when the radio came out, there's a lot of revolution in talk about, oh, radios are going to revolutionize education. Even I remember seeing a study over the summer that was like that students who learn with the typewriter have significantly improved academic performance than students who don't learn with the typewriter. So I was like, that's crazy. And so it's really since the 90s with the boom of the internet that we've been able to get a lot of this data tracking, and then now with AI, this is another milestone where we're improving. Not only is AI able to teach and track student learning, it can now text with kids or students, and then it moved from text to talking in 2023, 1 year after ChatGPT came out. Then and then now AI has vision, and so the next step would then be using this vision and voice AI to track student learning and report it to teachers. Then eventually AI can draw for you if you're, let's say on an iPad, and then even have emotional care to help motivate you through the process. And so I'm doing an evaluation project with Ivy Hill Academy. It's a school I used to work at as a STEM teacher. This is some of my students from a couple of years ago. And the high school is an iPad-only high school. And so all the students are required to have an iPad. It's a private school. And we're using Gemini and plugging it into an app that will act as a tutor for you, following tutoring principles and being a little bit trained or prompted with uploaded files on math to make sure that it doesn't hallucinate as much. And so obviously this gets into accessibility. Not everyone has an iPad with, and then screen sharing your iPad for you to write your handwritten math on it. And so this is, preliminary study. And then we're going to be comparing algebra. One teacher teaches 2 classes of algebra 1. And so we're going to be focusing on one class versus the other class, control versus treatment. However, because it is a small school and students do sometimes get the best of the teachers, one of the classes are split up in terms of boys and girls because of behavior issues. So that's going to be a confounding variable for the study as well. So a preliminary study, something we're excited to implement if we can get the app running in time, and if not, we're just going to use Gemini. But that's a little bit of the project that I'm going to be working on.
But to the point that I was making earlier, he's got this sandbox where all of the students have iPads. You don't always have that option when you're designing instruction to think, oh, everybody's going to have the internet, everybody's going to have an iPad, but that shouldn't stop you from kind of experimenting and thinking big. No, because eventually these things will be more ubiquitous and you'll have it. Like I can remember, 15, 20 years ago, I would sit in a class and come on up, Pam, I know you're ready. And you didn't all have iPads, but now you do. So Pam is now a little further along. She's already done some stuff. She's early on. And she had the client. I'll let you explain.
Okay, thank you. Okay, you guys, so my project is very different. I want to say the only thing we have in common is that it's about chatbots. Who is familiar with the flipped classroom model? Okay, Jefferson. Tell me about the flipped classroom model.
It's the idea that students are preparing readings, the assignments in preparation for class, so that in class they can do the collaboration, the activities, the building.
Did she prepare you before to answer that?
I planted all of them, yes. So exactly just what Jefferson was saying. In a traditional classroom, the teacher stands in front, lectures, and then the students go home and do the homework. In a flipped classroom, students learn online, and then they come to class doing discussions, hands-on activities, experiments. So it's more interactive. My client has a class here at BYU teaching physics 321. These are the demographics of the students in that class. So first thing I did was a gap analysis. I found out what was the problem. And the student feedback that he got was, this is a great class. We actually like the flip, but here are some problems. The information is repetitive. He was giving digital textbooks. He was giving like a video of his screencasting of his videos going through the slides. And the student said, it's repetitive information. And then they also said it is passive, which means they're just sitting there and they're just watching. There's no engagement, no interaction going on. And then lack of immediate feedback because there is no teacher there. That is one of the problems and challenges of flipped classroom. When you're learning at home, there is no teacher to respond immediately. So chatbot is a possible solution. I am not saying that it is the perfect solution. I'm saying that it is not the perfect solution, but it is a potential solution and it can work in some cases, most cases. In this case is what we're trying. It provides personalized learning, ask corresponding questions, and it provides immediate feedback 24/7. So it was an iterative process for me because this was a design and development project. And what I did was focus on the collaboration between me and the subject matter expert. So these are the iterations that we went through. The first one was, I did the analysis, the user analysis, and I came up with this great report. And Dr. Franson was like, I don't agree with some of these. And so I was like, okay, well, what don't you agree with? And we just had this correspondence where we came to a shared understanding of what he wanted and what I could do. The second thing was we decided to use School AI because it's a free platform. All teachers and students can use it for free, which is fantastic. The only problem with School AI is once we uploaded all the information we needed to train the GPT, it was incredibly slow. Like there was almost a 10-second lag between the question being asked and the response time. Not only that, but it had less than an 85% accuracy. And so Dr. Franson's like, this is going to do more harm than good for my students. So we had to pivot. We had to change the platform. So we looked at the different platforms, and because we had to have a GPT or something that we could train, not every AI platform has that. So we ended up going to ChatGPT because of that. So what I did was I created individual chatbots for each of the 8 chapters that he was teaching on. Well, he went through them and tried them out, and he says, well, the one in lesson 25 is great, but by the time you get to lesson 29, all that information hasn't accumulated. So the chatbot has been individualized. So what he needed me to do was go back and make a collective chatbot. So instead of doing individual chatbots for every lecture, I ended up creating a collective chatbot for all of the lectures because then it was a compiled knowledge. But then the problem with using ChatGPT is it's not free. Well, there is a free version, but you are limited by tokens and time and how many questions you can ask. And so we actually talked about the cost problem and the equity problem. Like, how will this affect students who have a ChatGPT Plus account and those who don't? Studies have shown that on average, students actually only use AI for about 8 minutes, which may be enough. That's all they need. But even then, to give every student a ChatGPT Plus account for 2 semesters worth of students would cost almost $10,000. I don't know about you, but I don't have $10,000 to give. So we decided, you know what, we're just going to throw it out there and see if they do use it for 8 minutes or about at a certain amount of time that before the AI tells them, please return back tomorrow, okay? So we ran a pilot with 3 students who I couldn't do until after the spring summer term. And so that was flexibility with the subject matter expert as well as the volunteer participants. And we actually have some great results, and I will share with you when I'm done because my time is up.